and anger, as otherwise they could not sustain their love for their parents, and that love is crucially necessary for their survival. But these emotions, though suppressed, remain stored away in our bodies, and in adulthood they can cause symptoms of varying severity. We may suffer from bouts of depression, attacks of panic, fear, or violent reactions towards our children without identifying the true causes of our despair, our fear, or our rage. If we were aware of those causes, it would prevent us from falling ill, because then we would realize that our fathers and mothers no longer have any power over us and can no longer beat us. In most cases, however, we know nothing about the causes of our sufferings because the memories of those childhood beatings have long been consigned to total oblivion. Initially, this amnesia is beneficial, acting as a protection for the child's brain. In the long term, however, it is painful because it then becomes chronic and has a profoundly confusing impact. Though it protects us from unpleasant memories, it cannot preserve us from severe symptoms like the unexplained fear, constantly warning us of dangers that no longer exist. In childhood, these fears were entirely realistic. One example that springs to mind is the case of a 6-month-old girl whose mother regularly slapped her in order to teach her obedience. Of course, the girl survived those slaps and all the other physical punishments inflicted on her in youth, but at the age of 46, she suddenly developed heart problems. 4 years on end, we trust to medication to alleviate our sufferings. But there is one question no one, neither patients nor their doctors, ever asks: where is this danger that my body incessantly warns me of? The danger is hidden away in childhood, but all the doors that could afford us the right perspective on the problem appear to be hermetically closed. No one attempts to open them. On the contrary, we do everything we can to avoid facing up to our personal history and the intolerable apprehension that dogged us for so long in childhood. Such a perspective would re-establish contact with the most vulnerable and powerless years of our lives, and that is the last thing we want to think about. We have no desire to go through that feeling of desperate impotence all over again. On no account do we want to be reminded of the atmosphere that surrounded us when we were small and were helplessly exposed to the whims and excesses of power-hungry adults. But this period is one that has an incomparably powerful impact on the rest of our lives, and it is precisely by confronting it that we can find the key to understanding our attacks of apparently groundless panic, our high blood pressure, our stomach ulcers, our sleepless nights, and, tragically, the seemingly inexplicable rage triggered in us by a small baby crying. The logic behind this enigma resolves itself once we set out to achieve awareness about the early stages of our lives. After all, our lives do not begin at the age of 15. Seeking that awareness is the first step toward understanding our sufferings, and when we have taken that step, the symptoms that have plagued us for so long will gradually begin to recede. Our body no longer has any need of them, because now we have assumed conscious responsibility for the suffering children we once were, truly attempting to understand the child within means acknowledging and recognizing its sufferings, rather than denying them. Then we can provide supportive company for the mistreated infant, an infant left entirely alone with his fears, deprived of the consolation and support that a helping witness could have provided. By offering guidance to the child we once were, we can create a new atmosphere he can respond to, helping them to see that it is not the whole world that is full of dangers, but all the world of his family that he was doomed to fear in every moment of his existence. We never knew what bad mood might prompt our mother to expose us to the full force of her aggression. We never knew what we could do to defend ourselves. No one came to our aid, no one saw that we were in danger, and in the end we learned not to perceive that danger ourselves. Many people manage to protect themselves from the memories of a nightmare childhood by taking medication of some kind, frequently of an antidepressant nature. But such medication only robs us of our true emotions, and then we are unable to find expression for the logical response to the cruelties we were exposed to as children. And this inability is precisely what triggered the illness in the first place. Once we decide to embark on a course of therapy, all this should change. Now we have a witness for our sufferings, someone who wants to know what happened to us, who can help us learn how to free ourselves of the fear of being humiliated, beaten, and maltreated as we were before. A witness who can assist us in leaving the chaotic mess of our childhood behind, in identifying our emotions and ultimately living with the truth. Thanks to the sustaining presence of this person, we can abandon our denial and regain our emotional honesty. What kind of people go in search of therapy, and why do they do so? In most cases, they are women who feel that they have failed their children and who suffer from depression without recognizing it as such. Men usually come on the insistence of their partners, or because they are afraid of being left, or because they are already separated. Therapies are normally expected to solve all our present problems and restore our well-being, but without forcing us to confront them.
Oh my god.
We can identify the causes of our sufferings. Wednesday, March 1st, 2006. On overcoming the consequences of maltreatment. Almost all of us had corporal punishments inflicted on us in our formative years, but the fear and anger such punishments bring with it remain unconscious for a very long time. Children have no choice but suppress their fear.